You see what I had to do, Jan?
Oh, you got the coffee.
I had to. Just too tired. Well, last week we kind of went over how the Constitution is structured. And, we were thinking about going over the Bill of Rights this week and just go through each one individually. How does that sound, old man?
Sounds fine to me.
Okay. So this is the Bill of Rights. It's the first 10 amendments to the Constitution. And, they are giving me a little bit of a summary. So, the First Amendment is going to cover freedom of religion, freedom of speech, freedom of the press, and rights of assembly and petition. And even though it covers all of that stuff, it's really just one little sentence. And it says, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or the press, or the right of the people to peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. So that says a whole lot in that one little sentence. It gives you your freedom of religion and says not only can they make no law respecting the establishment of it or an establishment of a religion, but they can't prohibit the free exercise thereof. Here again, they do all the time. And people let them get away with it because people don't understand their rights, and they don't even really understand these days what freedom is, apparently. A lot of people feel like you gotta go to the government to get permission for everything. But in fact, it's the other way around, that the government should be asking us for permission.
One thing that I don't think most people understand about the Bill of Rights is that this is a list of things that are not freedoms that we have, but it's things the government cannot do to us. They cannot establish a religion. They can't prohibit our practice of religion. They can't stop the free press. They can't stop us from assembly. They can't stop us from bearing arms. These are things against them.
Right.
In fact, everything is allowed unless there's a law saying that we can't do it. And so that's what these other statutes are that they come up with, telling us what we can't do. But the nice thing, the Bill of Rights, this is what the government cannot, may not, shall not do.
Exactly. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. They think that this gives us rights, or the Constitution was written for us. The Constitution was not written for us. It's not for us, doesn't pertain to us. It is spelling out the terms and conditions of the restrictions that the government is under, just like old man just said. They can't do this, they can't do that, they can't do the other. So it's not really that your Constitution is giving you any rights. We talked about that last week when we talked about where your rights actually come from, and they don't come from the Constitution or your government. They come, absolutely, they come straight from God, from your Creator. And so once we understand that this document really, it's not restrictions on us, and it's not granting us anything. It's only restrictions and granting of privileges to the government. Correct, old man?
Correct. You know, it's just that, they cannot give us you know, these rights. You know, these are inherent that God gave to us, and they cannot change a right into a crime.
Or a privilege.
Yeah, or a privilege. It's not a privilege. They have privileges. We have rights. In fact, what the interesting thing is that when you encounter a policeman, he doesn't have these rights because he is a government agent. And so he's not under the Bill of Rights at that time. He's under it from the standpoint of you can't do this, you can't do that. You know.
Right.
So
He's not a
right.
sovereign. He's not a sovereign. He's a servant.
Yep.
You're either a sovereign or a servant. And he's a servant, which is basically a slave to the people. He is bound to do what is laid out by the people. Absolutely. Okay.
So how do they get away with, like my situation, because I'm a convicted felon, that I'm not allowed to carry a weapon or own a gun?
They lie to you, and you take the okey doke. Once
Regulated militia being necessary for the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed.
There you go.
Allowed them to do this to us over
And
the
there are
years.
many people in prison because they say it's a minimum of a 10-year sentence. If you're a convicted felon and you're caught with a firearm, they throw you in prison for 10 years.
That's because we have a dumbed down public who doesn't understand the law, and therefore they believe it, and therefore the government gets away with it. That's why I keep saying the only solution is education. If everybody knew this, that supposed law about felon in possession, there is no such thing. Because anything repugnant to the Constitution is null and void. If it's null... Do what?
From the beginning.
Right.
You know, from the beginning, there's ways to get around that. If you're a felon, you can get a pre-1898 pistol, black powder pistol, and believe me, there's nothing wrong with those. They are deadly. In fact, there was one black powder pistol I had, and I've given them all of them away to my children and grandchildren, but there was one, and I can't think of a Dragoon model, and it's a fairly heavy pistol, and black powder, I forget the caliber of it. It was the world's most powerful pistol until they came out with a 357 Magnum. So that means it was more powerful than a 38 or a 22 or a 32. It was more powerful, and you can legally carry those. Other things that you can carry legally, because that's considered an antique under the Firearms Act, is paperball guns. David Warden in Houston sells them. He's a felon, and he sells these, and he carries them with him when he goes out to do a First Amendment audit. You know, and what it is they have different calibers, and that when it shoots a pepper ball, which hits with lots of force. It's enough to stop a person when they get hit, and then that pepper explodes in their face, and they can't breathe. They immediately start coughing, and their eyes are burning. So there are options for you for self-protection. Knives, you know, I mean, there's a variety of things that you can have that we need to protect ourselves. And there are ways to do it and still be within the statutes that the law enforcement officers are going to try to enforce. In fact, I remember one video that David did. He had just gone and took a picture of a railroad track, and a railroad worker got very upset, called the railroad police. They came out, put him in handcuffs, because he had taken a picture of a railroad track and he had a pistol on him. The pistol was a black powder pistol, and so it was legal. So, I mean, it's, you know, they can't stop you. They might stop you for a minute and talk about it and then have to go back and to back up because they legally cannot detain you or arrest you because you have a black powder pistol or one of the replicas built today. You don't have to get one that's an antique. You can be a replica.
But here's the thing, you don't even have to go to that degree unless you just want to avoid, the court case, which I can certainly understand. But the fact is that felon in possession is not a law because it's repugnant to the Constitution. And I was going to try to get my hands on a book. All the prisons have an inmate handbook. And I have seen a prison inmate handbook, and it laid out the real law about your rights being restored. So, it said you could have a firearm and you could vote and when you could do all that and everything. So, I'm going to try to get a hold of some inmate handbooks and see if I can't, find that in an inmate handbook these days. I don't know if it'll still be in there, but basically that's just something made up, just like they did with my traffic stop and traffic ticket and everybody's traffic stop. I went over in one of my videos about the first 3 things a cop says when he stops you, which is license, registration, and insurance. And the thing is that when they do that, we're here in Texas, so I showed Texas, but I showed in the Texas law that it is actually unlawful. There is no requirement for registration, and we have Supreme Court rulings in the state of Texas that show there is no such thing known to our law as a driver's license. But every single day, police pull people over and ask them for those very things. And if you don't have them, they cite you. And they do it because we're ignorant of the law. And so once the whole public is clued into the law and what it is, we won't suffer these fates anymore. But that's what it's going to take, is for everybody to know the law and to say, look, we're not going to put up with it. Now I'm going to share a different screen with you real quick and just show you this. Okay, now every police officer just about in the state of Texas will tell you you have to have driver's license, insurance, and registration. But when you go look at the code here, it's simply not true. It's just absolutely not true when you look at the codes. So that's the
when
deal.
I go look that up, do I look that under my state transportation code?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So whatever state you're in, transportation code, and then put in like speeding or road signs or driver's license or whatever. But I'll show you what I got here. If we look right here, I'm just going to run through this super quick just to prove the point of how they lie about what the law actually is. They tell you, you have to have these things, don't they? Now let's look and see what the law says. And it's the same thing with felon in possession of firearms. It's a lie. So I'm betting in every state they're going to have very, very similar codes. They always do. The constitutions are pretty similar. The codes are pretty similar. Is that what you've experienced, old man?
Yep.
Okay. So you should be able to find something very similar in your code. So in the Texas Transportation Code 521001, in this chapter, driver's license means an authorization issued by the department for the operation of a motor vehicle. And you have to look up the word motor vehicle in the code too. All of these words mean something different than you probably think they do. The term includes A, a temporary license or instruction permit, and B, an occupational license. Now, let's talk about that for a second. What is an occupational license? Because in Texas, if you look on your driver's license, it's going to say Class C license. What's a Class C license? It's nowhere in this law. This says occupational. Well, we know there's a such thing as a CDL, a commercial driver's license. Is that what they mean by occupational? They don't tell us what's an occupational license. It would leave you to assume that that's something to do with work, which would mean it's a...
For drivers.
Yeah, it would be a commercial.
Hire.
Yeah, it would be a commercial license. So, but they call a commercial license a CDL, but that's not listed here either. The only thing we have is the temporary or the instruction permit and the occupational. But when you look at your ticket, like here in Texas, he wrote me up for expired Class C driver's license. What is that? It doesn't even have that here in the law. Now, if we look a little further, in Keith Brooks versus the state, and this was in the Texas criminal courts, it says, an information charging the driving of a motor vehicle upon the public road, I can't read it because y'all's pictures are in the way, highway without a driver's license charges no offense, as there is no such license as a driver's license known to the law. I mean, I don't know how much more clear it could get. Then in Frank John Callis versus state, that's also Texas criminal courts, it says the court has held that there is no such license known to the Texas law as a driver's license. So, you see right there how they lie every single day, don't they? Every single day they say you have to have a license. Well, the law says there is no such thing. So do the cops know the law? Apparently not. Now, let's look at number 2, registration. And this is under 501.004, applicability of the Certificate of Title Act. Okay, so this is your registration. This chapter applies to a motor vehicle owned by the state or a political subdivision of a state. This chapter does not apply to a motor vehicle while it's owned or operated by the United States. Now, it goes on in 502.003, and it says, a political subdivision of this state may not require an owner of a motor vehicle to 1. Register the vehicle, 2. Pay a motor vehicle registration fee, or 3. Pay an occupation tax or license fee in connection with a motor vehicle. So you see right there, it says a political subdivision may not require an owner of a vehicle to register it or to pay a registration fee or even an occupational tax or license fee. That's what the law says. It's right here in black and white. But they tell you every single day you have to have it, and if you don't, they write you a ticket, don't they? Number 3 is proof of insurance. Now, here in Texas, it says that you have a duty to provide evidence of financial responsibility to an investigating officer investigating an accident. So, if there's been no accident, I have no duty to provide proof of responsibility. If they're not investigating an accident, then I don't have to prove my financial responsibility to them, but they write tickets for it every single day. So that's just, some examples that I wanted to show you where they say something is law and it's actually not. And that's what we've got to teach the public, what the law is, so that we don't get stuck by this anymore,
I do have a question.
Uh-huh.
So, let's say that I went, instead of having a driver's license, I did what you said before about getting a passport as a state national, is that correct? And use that. If I used a passport instead of a driver's license.
Uh-huh. Well, if you look on the passport,
I have a car, and I want to get insurance in case I have an accident. Do the insurance companies require that you have a driver's license in order to purchase insurance?
I do believe most of them do. I do believe so. That's a thing with the insurance company. I mean, that's their own policies, So, just like I just showed you on the traffic stuff, how they say every day that it's law and it's actually not. They do the same thing with the felon in possession. Once you've served your sentence, you're done. They can't make you serve some kind of sentence forever. Once you've served your sentence, you're done. But, here again, they lie and try to keep people under their thumb. So until we get educated on this, we're gonna kind of stay in trouble on that. Okay, so that's Second Amendment right to bear arms, which old man read. And then we come to 3, housing of soldiers. No soldier shall in time of peace be quartered in any house without the consent of the owner, nor in time of war, but in a manner to be prescribed by law. In other words, they can't make you take soldiers into your house in a time of peace. They can't just come in and take over your house and stay there. All right, then we go into the Fourth Amendment, which is search and arrest warrants, search, seizure, and arrest warrants. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable search and seizure shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized.
The police will violate that. I saw one about a year ago, and then again it came up this last week. And there was a young man that was going through a divorce, and he had, I believe in Alabama, had an attorney, and the attorney said, they probably are going to ask for your cell phone at some point. So the young man surrendered his cell phone to his attorney. They go into court, come back out, and the sheriff there and a lady from the prosecution office, and they serve the warrant, and they say, but we know he doesn't have it on him, and the search warrant said on the man's person and in his vehicle. They said, well, we have a video of when you left court that you gave the phone to your attorney, and then he gave it to his assistant, who put it in that briefcase that she's carrying. and they wouldn't turn it over because it's not described in that. So they decided they're going to go ahead instead of going and getting another warrant, which the police had the right to detain long enough to go get another warrant to get it from the lady's briefcase. They didn't do that. They went ahead and arrested the attorney and his assistant.
Wow.
And they went to jail and ended up winning a lot of money.
Yeah.
Because they violated the terms of the warrant. They can only search what is in the warrant. I have a case right now where a friend of mine and I, in April, were out walking around at night, and he was looking for housing. We went to 3 different cities. Third city we went to, man came out all upset because we had flashlights and flashed on his house and on his car out in the street. We never left the public sidewalk. And he wanted to know what we're doing and everything. He got mad and eventually came after us with a baseball bat. He got within 5 feet of me, and I hit him in the face with pepper gel, and he didn't like that. So anyway, they called the police come out, and instead of putting him under arrest for getting within 5 feet of me and swinging a baseball bat at me and my friend,
Right.
they arrested me for disturbing the peace.
Ah.
So, they do strange things. Anyway, trying to make it shorter, they got eventually, about a week, 10 days after they seized my body camera and my friend's body camera, that they went in and downloaded the videos that were there. The search warrant and the affidavit only asked to search for what they were considered a crime in that city. But what they did is we had gone to 3 cities that night, so they downloaded the files from all 3 cities. And they called the 2 other cities and trying to get those cities to get charges filed against us. Well, the police already came out and said, you're not doing anything wrong, and we turn you loose. So there's not anything the police can do. So anyway, what I'm going to have to do is to have my attorney, because I can't handle my federal case and this one at the same time, is to have the information they obtained on the first 2 cities, as fruit of a poisonous tree, because they did not have in the affidavit asking for it or in the warrant stating they can pull any file. It was video files that were related to that city. So
Yeah.
that came up to me today, so I've got to deal with that too.
Yeah. And
We're not allowed to walk down the sidewalk during the middle of the night with a flashlight. Not in America.
unbelievable. Yeah, and they act like we have a situation here of the tail wagging the dog. The police act like we have to obey them when they're the servant. Who has a servant and they obey their servant? It's insanity. So, again, the thing that's going to solve it is people being forearmed with knowledge, because all these searches they commit on the street, they're 99% of them illegal.
Yeah.
And people let them get away with it. And you've got to learn to stand your ground. And usually, if you know what you're doing and you know what you're saying, they usually back down because, number one, they're not used to an informed public. And number two, they're not used to being confronted. They are bullies. Yeah. And a bully's only instrument is intimidation. Because a bully knows if you get past that, you've got him. He doesn't have anything else in his arsenal other than fear tactics and intimidation. So if you can stand your ground, oftentimes you can get out of this. The problem is, we do have a thin blue line, and these guys back each other up and they lie. So those of us who, are law-abiding patriots who are trying to save our country have to be very careful about how we go about things and how we conduct ourselves. But if we continue to learn and assert our rights, and we continue to teach our neighbors what those are, the more we do that, the less people will be the victims of these bullies. Okay, are we ready to go on? Oh, I want to mention also, let's talk about this upon probable cause supported by oath or affirmation. Let's talk about that for a minute. So, in order for a warrant to issue, it has to be upon probable cause, and that has to be supported by oath or affirmation. Now, here's another okie doke they give a lot of people going into court and stuff. What they'll do is they'll present what's called an information. It's not an oath or affirmation. It's not a sworn affidavit that somebody has, a claim. It's not a sworn statement that somebody has been injured. What it is an information saying, based on knowledge and information,
based on the officers, experience that they have, that they, putting all things together. It's not just one thing, but it's their experience along with the different things that they,
right,
hunches that they call facts, which are not facts. They're
right. Yeah, and they call it information and belief. But that's not what the Bill of Rights says. The Bill of Rights says upon probable cause. Probable cause is not information and belief. Probable cause is a statement of facts with a clearly articulable crime spelled out. We think Nanette ripped off this house because we have a tape of her running from it with the VCR in her hand. Okay, that's probable cause. And so the person that saw me running from the place with the VCR in my hand would have to write an oath or affirmation. They would have to take an oath swearing that what they're saying is the truth. And they would be a witness unless they were the victim and it was their VCR, and then they would be the complainant and the victim as well, and then they would sign the complaint, which also has to be signed by the victim, not by the cop or the DA. And that's another thing that they do, is they have the DA sign the complaint. Well, that DA doesn't have any claim against you. He can't sign any complaint against you. So, again, these are ways that they fool people so that they can trap them into these kinds of situations. Old man, do you have anything else on that one?
On
Fourth Amendment? Okay. Let's move on to the Fifth Amendment. So this is rights in criminal cases. No person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a presentment or indictment of a grand jury, except in cases arising in the land or naval forces or in the militia when in actual service in time of war or public danger. Nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb, nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation.
Let's go back to 4 for just a moment.
Okay.
As my mind starts opening up, that with warrants, we have both the search warrants that I give you a current one on my situation, and that you also have search warrants for the house. The house is something that is probably in the Constitution and the Bill of Rights is one of the most important things that we have is our residence. That's why sometimes some of the laws are called castle doctrines because it's like a castle. It's something that no one can come in without our permission.
It's
I have
sacred.
seen numerous times of police violating that. They have to have a warrant, and the warrant has to be specific as to why they're coming in, what they're searching for, and only those things that they're searching for. And I have friends that, one comes to mind down in the San Antonio area, that they went in and they took his computer, his wife's computer, his things out of their vehicles, lots of other personal property that was not on the warrant.
Yeah.
And it's basically that the chief of police in that town, Leon Valley, that had probably the lowest rating of any town in Texas, that he's actually, after about 2.5, 3 years, has been fired as police chief, chief of police. So anyway, they violate this constantly. You do not have to even answer a door. If they say they have a warrant, you have the right to read the warrant before anybody comes in. They will try and stick their shoe into the doorway
Yep.
to keep you closing the door, because if you close it on their foot, that's an assault and they're going to arrest you. So they have to, if you want to see a warrant, tell them to stick it there on the door handle and to move back 20 foot, and you'll reach out and get it and then relock your screen door or relock your door. Do not open the door and let them in. If they get their foot in, you're not going to get rid of them. They will stay there because they will change shifts if they have to for 24 hours. Do not let them in your house. I mean, it's sad, in that case that I have in Plano, Texas, that I was telling you about, where the man tried to hit me with a baseball bat. They saw the video where the sergeant goes in and questions the homeowner, and he said, "Oh, well, these two guys, they're sovereign citizens. They don't believe in the government. They don't believe that you have to have a license or an ID with you at all times. Well, there's no law in the United States that you have to have an identification with you all times. A sovereign citizen is someone that wants to overthrow the government, that does not believe in any of the laws, rules that we have in the United States. I support our Constitution.
Yep.
But the police don't. The police break these laws. A lot of people that when the law is broken, they call them a tyrant. I call them a criminal.
They are.
They're criminals.
Yep.
They dishonor their badge, and I tell them that. I've got it on video where I do that.
Yep.
I will stand up for the rights of the people, for my family, for your family, for my children, my grandchildren,
Yep.
everybody. Because if we don't exercise our rights, we will lose them.
Yep.
Like if you don't exercise your muscles, you lose them.
Yep.
We'll go to the fifth now.
Absolutely right. That's absolutely right. And once again,
Just as a suggestion, a video I saw years ago of a former police officer that was discussing how to handle the police. He said, don't open the door at all.
yeah,
If they want to serve a warrant, you can make them hold it up to your window for you to read it.
yeah, yep,
Something to not let them in.
yep. And a lot of times I won't even let them know I'm here or not. Sometimes I do. Sometimes I open the window and look straight at them. Like, what? Because that's the kind of girl I am. But sometimes I just don't even answer, like when they came the other day. And I heard through the door a police radio, so I didn't answer. And what they were trying to do See, they're always trying to fool you. And as long as they can, then you get screwed. When people decide they're tired of being screwed and they want to learn the law so they can protect themselves, that stuff will stop. But anyway, what they were trying to do is I didn't sign that ticket, and I gave them the opportunity to take me to the magistrate. But they said they were going to arrest me. And I said, well, no, I'm not down to be arrested. I'll go to the magistrate, but I'm not being arrested. They don't have the right to arrest you in order to take you to the magistrate. And that goes back to the Trayvon case. The Trayvon case was out of Florida, and this young man had said, take me to the magistrate. Well, they arrested him for 20 minutes waiting for the magistrate. And he sued them because the law says that you are to be taken to a magistrate. It doesn't say they can arrest you and take you to the magistrate. You are not under arrest. You have the right to go to the magistrate. And so when you offer the cop that, hey, I'll go to the magistrate, and they decide that they're going to arrest you to do so, just like they did in my video and just like the video old man sent today, both of those videos, the cop said the same thing. No, I'm going to arrest you. The only difference is the other guy went ahead and signed the ticket under duress. I wasn't going to sign my ticket. So if he would have wanted to take me to jail right then, he'd have had to bust my car window and drag me out, and we'll go to jail. Otherwise,
try to break into your car.
Yeah, and that's why I put up the window, because if he was gonna break in, he was gonna have to bust the window to do it. And so, but that doesn't mean they won't. I've seen them do it. So, a lot depends on, what you're willing to go through. Old man and I are diehard freedom lovers, and for our freedom, we're willing to be arrested. We're willing to stand up and confront them and do that stuff. So when everybody does that, these guys will calm right down and become the public servants they're supposed to be. But it's going to be up to us to put them in compliance and put them in check.
Yeah, recall that the Supreme Court allows police to lie to us.
Yeah.
In Fisher versus Culp, that's F-R-A-Z-I-E-R v. Culp, C-U-P-P, that in 1969, Supreme Court said that to get confessions or anything, they can lie to us. So they lie to us about what the law is. They lie to us about anything they want to lie about. They're allowed to do it because the Supreme Court said they can.
And another problem is, you know what? Honestly, a lot of them don't even know themselves what the law is. They really don't. A lot of them, they're not trying to be evil. They're not trying to be jerks. They're just ignorant. And that's unacceptable. We cannot have people on the street supposedly enforcing our laws who don't even know what they are. That's insanity. And we've got...
They have been raised, dumped down, just like everybody else.
Yep. And that's what we've got to fix. We've also got, attorneys who don't know the law. I mean, I've taught attorneys things about the law. They think, for example, Rooker-Feldman doctrine is, used all the time, and they think that's just perfectly fine. But, number one, it's a doctrine, not a law, and we have plenty of law that trumps it. But number two, it was interred by the Supreme Court over a generation ago. And yet attorneys use it every day. And I've said it that I had an attorney say, well, we use that all the time. And I said, yeah, and it's been interred. So attorneys don't know, cops don't know, even sheriffs don't know. It's not like you have to take a competency test to run for sheriff. And from all the research that's come out on hiring policies in the police departments, they're intentionally hiring people with an average 80 IQ, which is pretty low. Pretty low bar there. So that's what we're up against, and it's up to us to come out of our own dumbing down, educate ourselves, and teach everybody that we can. All right, so where do we want to go? Number 5. This is pretty big. Number 5. We might need to pull this apart a little bit. And for tonight's meeting, we're already at an hour. Maybe we should go into the Fifth Amendment, and then we'll close off for tonight and pick back up next week. What do y'all think?
That's fine. On the Fifth Amendment, one of the things that the Supreme Court has ruled is you can't just be quiet. You need to say that something to the effect that I implement the Fifth Amendment.
You have to assert.
I want to answer questions, and I want an attorney present for any questions.
Right.
You know, I had that in my case on Dart, and I told them that several times when they have me in a squad car to go send me to the sheriff's department to ID me. The corporal sticks his head in the door and says, hey, sir, you know, you're just detained. You're not arrested. Said, we just want to know who you are. And I said, well, I've asked y'all several times to stop questioning me, that I want an attorney here. And on video that I have, he said, we don't need no attorney here right now. And I said, I do.
Yeah.
You know.
Now, a lot of people don't realize that it is your right. If you get pulled over and they're wanting to search your car or whatever, you have the right to request an attorney to be present as a witness on your behalf.
Yes.
And when you tell them that, they are obligated to get an attorney out there. They are not able to search your car or anything else until you have your
I
attorney
haven't
present.
seen that anywhere in law. Where?
Well, all I can tell you is that cop that was doing all those videos about your rights, the former cop, that was one of the things he was talking about.
Is that the one that used to be in California?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, he lives in Weatherford, Texas.
Yeah.
He's a good guy.
Who's that?
It's a cop in Weatherford, Texas, but I had used to watch him, and then I lost his channel, and then I just picked it up again yesterday, so I will try to see if I can find it again, and I'll tell you the name of his channel.
Well, you know, here's the thing. When you start studying law, you gotta be real careful to verify everything that you hear. And you know, there's a lot of people that go on YouTube and they say this and that about the law. Why do you think this stuff right here is up on the screen? You know,
I say the same thing. I said, don't take what I say or anybody else says. Read the law itself.
Read the law.
And Annette's given us a couple of examples back a few minutes ago where she was telling you the cases. Read those cases. Read the way it's worded. You know, I used that with my deal in Plano the other night when my friend and I were walking around. That I said, well, you know, you want to search me. You want to put me in handcuffs, detain me. I said, to detain me, you have to have crime afoot. Not that you're just investigating something. There has to be a crime. And you think that I committed the crime, or I'm fixing to, you know, or I'm doing it right now. And then the second thing, you want to pat me down. Before you do that, let me have a few seconds. Is 2 requirements under Turner versus Ohio. One of them is you have to be able to articulate why you believe I have a weapon on me. And second, you have to articulate why you believe that I, this old 79-year-old man, disabled, would use a weapon against you. And if you can't do that, you can't pat me down because you're a criminal if you do.
Right.
So we have to learn these laws. We have to read what the Supreme Court says and use words.
And assert, like you said, the main thing is you have to assert these laws. They're not going to assume or presume them for you. You have to actually assert yourself. So before you can do that, you need to know what your rights actually are and what your remedies are if they violate those. So, again, like I said, number 5 here of the Fifth Amendment, there's quite a bit to pull apart here. So, let's start at the beginning again. No person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a presentment of an indictment. Unless on a presentment or indictment of a grand jury. Except in cases arising in the land or naval forces or militia when in actual time of war. Okay, so let's take that apart. So, they say here you can't be held for any capital or otherwise infamous crime unless upon a presentment or indictment of a grand jury. How many times do they not have that and go to court?
Every day.
Every day, multiple times a day. They'll come in with some flimsy little, what they're calling a complaint, which is actually an information from a police officer, and they act like this is some magic paper that does away with your Fifth Amendment, that they don't have to have a presentment or an indictment of a grand jury. And it's simply not true. And that's why we have to understand this Constitution because of all the restrictions that it places on them. Again, like we had talked about, right? Okay, so let's go on. Nor
the name of that channel on YouTube, that policeman that retired from California to Texas. Good luck, America.
Good luck. Okay.
Good luck, America.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. So, let's go on to the next part. It says, nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb. Okay, so that's what they call double jeopardy. So they can't keep, going this way and that way and the other way to try to get you on this one crime. Once you've been acquitted, that's it. And you're done. Nor shall he be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself. That's when people say, I plead the Fifth. It means they don't have to be a witness against themselves. And a lot of people want to assume that if you plead the Fifth, you're somehow guilty.
The Supreme Court said no. And they've
Right.
said that several times. You cannot assume that a person's guilty because they implement the Fifth Amendment.
Yeah,
You know?
and in some of those Supreme Court...
Let me have a second. Okay, what the police try to do is to say, oh, well, you're not arrested yet. It doesn't matter if you're arrested or not. Your rights are not only when you're arrested. Your rights are 24/7. So when a policeman stops you, you're under no obligation to say anything to him.
Right, and in those Supreme Court rulings, don't they say that, oh God, I just forgot what I was...
What 3 different Supreme Court justices have said over time is never talk to a policeman.
Oh, they didn't
Supreme
they
Court has,
mention in there that an innocent man has even more reason to plead the fifth?
yeah,
Yeah, they said that in the Supreme Court rulings that an innocent man has even more reason to plead the fifth. So keep that in mind. And then also going back to where you had said earlier that the officer said you're detained, not arrested, the Supreme Court, and I'll have to pull up, and I will for our next meeting, pull that up, that the Supreme Court has ruled that detained is arrested. Arrested is your movement is halted.
yes.
If they halt your movement, technically that is an arrest.
I told that to the officer in Plano. I said, first of all, don't handcuff me because you won't just hurt me, you will injure me. I'm 79, I have lots of injuries. So you're not just hurting me, you'll injure me. Second thing is, the Supreme Court has already ruled that if you put me in handcuffs, or if you put me in the back of the car, or if you take me to another location, any of those things, they say is a definition of an arrest. You have stopped my freedom. You have arrested me.
So technically when they tell you you're detained, stand right here, they have restricted your movement. You are arrested, and the Supreme Court has said it, and I'll have to pull up those rulings for us. But that's, it's important that we know this stuff. If you don't know any of this stuff, they just do whatever, and sometimes they do anyway.
Yeah, with DART, they searched me 2 times. First time, they had me on the ground, 500 pounds worth of officers on my back, neck, and shoulder. I told them I was disabled in those 3 areas, so they used them as trampoline. And then she reaches into my back pocket, taking things out, trying to find my ID, which I did not have on me. And I said, you can't do that. Terry versus Ohio says, you cannot search me. They said, oh, I'm just patting you down. I said, not when you reach in my pocket.
Well, patting you down is searching you.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not allowed to touch you. How is your servant, how does the servant touch the master? What nerve that a servant would touch his master?
Our Supreme Court has come up with stupid things like qualified immunity.
Right.
One of them is on detainment. To detain, there has to be crime afoot. It's
Right.
not that they're investigating something. There has to be a crime already. There has to be a crime that they believe that you did, and they just need enough evidence to have probable cause. They cannot search you when you're detained. It's against the law. If they do it, they're a criminal.
That's right.
And they did it twice to me with the DART police.
See, and they do crimes every day, and they get away with it because we're dumbed down, because the public
Nobody
is.
says anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just like that Philip Zimbardo, the Stanford prison experiment. And they took a perfectly healthy young boy and made him pretend to be a prison guard, and he just went crazy.
Yeah.
Really nice guy in the beginning, and he just turned kind of psycho and went nuts and went all Guantanamo Bay on the prisoners.
Yep.
And when it was over, they asked him, why did you do that? And he said, no one stopped me. That's what's happening with our public servants. No one's stopping them. So that's the problem. We've got to get educated, and it's got to be more of us stopping them than 1 or 2, 50-year-old woman and an 80-year-old man. Now, there's a whole lot of people out there doing the same thing we're doing. So I'm not going to act like we're saving the world over here, but it needs to be.
If we don't do it, we lose that much more.
Yeah, it needs to be a lot more people doing this and learning this stuff. because like he just said, we're going to continue to lose more and more. Now let's look at this last part here. Nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. Okay, well, we just went over some of that. I mean, when you're stopped, you are deprived of your liberty. I don't care if they call it detained, they call it arrest, or they're calling it a chat. If you're not free to leave, then they have restricted your liberty. They've deprived you of the liberty of walking away. That is an arrest. And they break this every single day. Nor shall you be deprived of property. And we see that every day. They stop you on the road and just take your stuff.
They took my cameras, and I had 3 cameras. They broke 2 out of 3. In Plano, back in April, they took my cell phone that hadn't even been turned on that night, and they took my body-worn camera. And I still don't have I have the cell phone back, but I don't have the body-worn camera.
Shameful. Shameful.
You know, it is.
They are.
They're complete criminals.
Absolutely.
Yeah. One of the things on going into cell phones that everybody needs to be knowledgeable on is Riley versus California. Supreme Court case. Not a California case, a Supreme Court case. And in that, the Supreme Court said, because the cell phones today have so much knowledge in them, you know, it's like an encyclopedia. Mine is like my history. I've got all my medical history, I've got my appointments, I've got pictures of my family, my grandchildren, I've got a great-grandson now. You know, we've got all sorts of notes.
That's very private, sacred information.
Without that, you know, I don't know when my next doctor's appointment is without that. I mean, absolutely, I don't know. You know, and so they take that, and Riley versus California says you cannot take it, you cannot search it without a search warrant, but they do it.
Yeah.
In Plano, they took the cameras, the cell phone on April the 5th and got a search warrant April the 10th or 14th. Got it on the 14th. I even did a personal Information Act in Texas request for information about any warrants of any kind on that case. And they said no, none. That was April 27th. They said none, but April the 14th, they had a search warrant. So they lied to us in the records that they give us. They out and out lied to us.
Yeah.
They know what they're doing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I've even heard cops and wannabe cops talk about screwing people over. Some of them it's absolutely intentional, and some of them are just ignorant of the law. And, the only solution for both is, again, goes back to learning the law and holding them accountable. But, we see here, like you said about your cell phone, if that information that you listed off is in your cell phone, that's very private and sacred. Things about your family and your grandkids, that is sacred. That's like your family Bible. And these people want to paw all over it and dig through it like it's any of their business. No. Your medical information, that's against HIPAA. I mean, the lawlessness of these guys is outrageous, and the projection is even worse, that they would turn around and say that we think we're above the law and we're somehow lawless or clueless is unbelievable when they haven't even read the law. So we've got to get much more informed and hold these guys accountable. Again, on property, look what they did in my case. I have a house I've paid for twice in cash, and they've given possession to somebody who has nothing invested into it and I have no contract with. I have no obligation to, and I have no debt to. And they have taken my property and given it to him. And they didn't give me anything. Even though it says I shall not be deprived of property without due process of law, which I haven't got, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation, and I haven't got. They have my money and my house. And I didn't even have a day in court before they took it and sold it. Not one single day in court. And now when they gave the man possession, they did so without jurisdiction. And the law says that when a judge commits or rules on a case that he has no jurisdiction over, he's committed treason. And yet they do it every day, don't they, old man?
We sure do.
They rule on cases where they have no jurisdiction, even though the law is that is, in fact, treason. I mean, this stuff is incredibly serious.
And we let it happen.
Sorry?
We let it happen. For the last 50 years or 40 years, we haven't said anything.
Yeah, it's been bred in circuses. They've kept our kids entertained with television and music and food that makes them lethargic and unable to critically think, and an educational system that teaches them to not think critically. And, you know, it's a very fast dwindling spiral if we don't get people educated. Because if people were educated, do you really think all those neighbors, all of them, would just stand by and watch a disabled woman lose her house she's paid for twice? I don't think that people are that cruel. I think if they knew the truth, they would have been standing with me. And so this is the problem why we have to educate them. Now, let's continue. Nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. Now, a lot of people will take that sentence, and a lot of attorneys who want to give you the okey doke will tell you, well, that's not about property taxes or anything, or the city taking your house. That has to do with eminent domain.
Well, asset forfeiture.
Yeah, well, where in here does it say eminent domain? It doesn't.
Where does it say the police can stop you because you have some money in your purse or money in your billfold that they can take it?
Right.
But they just say, oh, well, if you have money, it must be from some criminal action that you got the money.
Yep.
We don't believe that you could have worked for anything or saved anything. We don't believe that you're going to buy that car in Louisiana.
Yep.
We don't believe that you're going to buy that house. We don't believe that you inherited it from your father.
Yep.
So it's ours, and we'll spend it on whatever we want to, and they do.
Yep. Tell it. Tell it. That's the truth. That is the truth. That is what's happening. And again, we've just got to get informed so that we can stand up for ourselves. So, people aren't just running around screaming, I know my rights, and then getting run over. We've got to be really informed. Because we just went through the first 5 on the Bill of Rights, which is the first 10 amendments to the Constitution. And on every single item that it listed, we have, other than housing of soldiers maybe, other than housing of soldiers, everyone on here they have violated and do violate on a daily basis. So that's why we've got to get informed and get everybody we can informed so that people will begin to stand up for each other and for themselves and know how to stand up for themselves and know what the law actually is. So, one more time before we go, I just want to remind you, no matter who tells you, even if me or Old Man or any of my other guests that I'm going to bring on or panel members that I'm going to bring on that are incredibly educated on the law like Old Man is, even though we tell you, go verify it. Read it for yourself. See it in black and white. You need to know. You need to know yourself, not somebody else or something else. You need to know. So that's the thing that I want to stress, is that make sure you go look at the law yourself and look up the words in a legal dictionary, because they don't mean the same in English and in legalese.
Right. Okay. I gotta go. My
Yep.
buddy's getting out on me.
Yep, I think we're done for the night unless anybody has any questions. Thank you for coming, Old Man. I appreciate it.
Hey, I'll try and make it next week.
Alrighty. Love you
Right.
bunches. Give your wife love.
Okay.
Alright. Any questions?
Nope, I'm out of here.
Alright. See you next time.
Okay, thank you.
Alright. Bye-bye.